A very good afternoon to you all. On behalf of the Postgraduate Institute of Medical Education and Research, I welcome you to this webinar 7 on infection control practices for nursing staff. Before taking with the scientific schedule, I am connecting you to Professor J.S. Thakur, who is the chairman of PGI Committee on COVID-19 Prevention and IEC, for a short message. Dr. Thakur, please.
Thank you, Arpit. On behalf of PGI, we welcome you to our webinar series number 7, which is dedicated to infection control practices, especially among nurses. We have a very eminent panel of speakers, and we will be covering infection control practices in general, hand washing and PPE, handling biomedical waste, handling dead patient, which is usual requirement of any nursing officer. I'm sure that this seminar will be very useful. We all know that nursing officers are the frontline officer and backbone of any healthcare delivery system, and also the infections among the healthcare workers ranges from 10 to 20%. So their capacity building is very, very important. And with this background, I once again welcome all the speakers as well as all of you to this webinar. Thank you very much.
Many thanks to Professor Thakur, and now it's time to start with our scientific deliberations, where I welcome Ms. Neena Veer Singh from the National Institute of Nursing Education, PGI Chandigarh, and she will be talking about infection control practices for COVID-19. So we will be connecting to Ms. Neena Veer Singh in a short while.
Good afternoon to all. I'll be covering and talking on infection control practices in COVID-19. Why are we worrying? The first question comes, why are we worrying? We are worrying because this is a rapidly spreading infection and we have entered pandemic, and for today we have already crossed 41 plus cases. So that is the worry. Now when the next question comes, who is at risk? Before we were saying the health workers are more at risk, but now we say everyone is at risk because asymptomatic patients are there in the community also. Why infection control practices? We want to break the chain of transmission. And what is the chain of transmission is? We know this is a droplet infection and it is transmitted to direct human contact or indirect fomites. As there is no definitive treatment so far, so breaking the chain is the best infection control practices. We have infection control preambles, that is protecting yourself for healthcare workers, protecting your patients, and protecting your family and community at large. Talking about the strategies of preventing and limiting spread of COVID-19, we say that it is allowing standard precautions for all patients at all times, ensuring triage, early recognition and source control, implementing empiric additional precautions for suspected cases of COVID-19 infection, implementing administrative controls, and implementing environmental and engineering control. Training healthcare workers to recognize respiratory diseases, as Sir has already said, capacity building of healthcare workers is very important. Increase the access to PPEs and demonstrate competency in its use. To understand infection in the COVID hospital, we can divide our hospital into 3 zones: the green zone, the orange zone, and the red zone. Green zone being the least infected and red zone being the least infected. Standard precautions will, the most infected is the red zone. Standard precautions will remain same for everybody. The need of PPE would change depending upon the area of infectivity. For the administrative and engineering control, talking about PGI, we have 3 separate entries. The first entry is for the administrative and helping staff. The second entry is the people who are working in the COVID area, directly concerned with the patients. And the third entry is the entry of the patient. To mention here, it is important to say that at the each entry, there is thermal screening of everybody who enters in. They are given hand sanitizers to sanitize their hands, and masks are provided to them. Similarly, the lifts are divided into three. The clean lift, which is for the supplies to be given to the areas where they are needed in the wards. The second lift is for the healthcare workers to reach their designated workplace, and the third lift is for the patients who come to the COVID area for admission. We have 3 control rooms with CCTVs inside. We monitored the activities of control room. The first control room is to monitor the patient care, which is under the control of the treating doctor. The doctors who are directly in the care are given consultation from this control room. The second control room is at the doffing area, which helps in safe doffing of the healthcare workers. And the third control room is where the overall view can be taken of the activities in the COVID hospital. This is the flow chart, flow of staff in the Nehru Hospital Extension block. They have a specific pathway to follow, and it is very important to say that the people who are working on the third and the fourth floor will only come to the ground floor once they have finished their quarantine. So after this, we come to the standard precautions. These are the basic level of IPC precautions for all patients at all times, regardless of suspected or confirmed status of the patient. Risk assessment is very critical for all activities, and based on the risk assessment, the rational use and we can minimize the need for the PPEs. But here we would also say that we should not compromise for the need of the PPE. There are 7 elements of standard precautions: hand hygiene, respiratory hygiene, PPE according to risk, safe handling, cleaning and disinfection of patient care equipments, environmental cleaning, safe handling and cleaning of the soil, linen and waste management. To talk about hand hygiene, I would like to mention that this will be taken in detail. Hands are the tools of the healthcare workers. Talking about the respiratory hygiene, we know this is a droplet infection, and it is very important to maintain the respiratory hygiene. Cover the nose and mouth with tissue when coughing or sneezing. Immediately dispose tissues in the nearest waste receptacles. Perform hand hygiene after contact with respiratory secretions and contaminated objects and materials. And in absence of tissue, handkerchief, patient to be instructed to cover his nose and mouth with arm with flexed elbow during coughing and sneezing. And it is very important to ensure availability of material for cough etiquettes. The patient might need a place to wash hands. The patient might need to discard the used tissues and a hand sanitizer. So this needs to be ensured. These are the PPEs which will be used and discussed in detail by the next speaker. Precautions for healthcare workers: make yourself comfortable, because it is very important for the healthcare worker to be comfortable. The healthcare worker should drink, eat and use washroom as required. Ensure PPE as per the risk assessment. PPE should not be adjusted or touched during the patient care. And do not leave the patient file, chart, pen at the bedside, because these are the most contaminated areas. While using duty phones, because you do not carry your own phones, wear clean gloves and keep phone away from your phone. You can hear it on speaker. While doing care for the patient, wear a third pair of gloves, which is very important, while performing any activity in the area, and remove immediately after care. Do not routinely examine the patients, because we have monitors and everything comes on the monitors. Use stethoscope only when very important, if you feel you want to assess the condition of the patient, and immediately clean it with 70% alcohol. Stand 1 to 2 meters away from the patient and ask the patient to turn face away from you. Ask him to wear a mask. For close examination or procedures which will generate aerosol, always use N95 mask plus a full face visor. Frequently clean the work surfaces, computers and telephones, and minimize your entries in the patient's room. Perform maximum and work in minimum time. When we talk about the care of environment, supervise and educate the co-workers. They need your help. Ensure their PPEs. Ensure the safe doffing of HAs and sanitary workers. Ensure mopping of floor with 1% hypochlorite. Ensure surface disinfection with 10% EcoSeal. And if we do not have EcoSeal, we can use 1% hypochlorite. Soak patient linen in 1% hypochlorite for approximately 30 minutes and put in yellow, clearly labeled leak-proof double bags and sanitize it from the outside. Talking about the high-touch surfaces in patient care area, the following are the high-touch surfaces which need to be cleaned and disinfected more frequently. Use a checklist to promote accountability for cleaning responsibilities. Biomedical waste management stands at the backbone of infection control practices, which will be taken up in detail by the next speakers. Talking about the healthcare workers and important points they should keep in mind, follow the designated paths and lifts we have already discussed, and every institute will have their own pathways, so people should take care of that. No belts, wallets, cash or coins should be brought for duty. No mobile phones. At the end of the shift, the pen, the stethoscope and your own spectacles to be cleaned with 70% alcohol. And be careful that the stains might spoil your spectacles, so you can also wash them with soap and water. Clean hands from elbow below with soap and water after removing the scrub suit. Do not touch any surface until you leave the COVID area. Use a single pair of shoes for your workplace. Clean your mobile phones with 70% alcohol before going back to home. At place of duty, at place of stay after duty, because this will be a 7 days duty and you will be provided accommodation in the hospital only, somewhere in private wards. Remove the shoes outside if possible. Wash your keys and hands immediately you enter your room. Have shower, wash hair, soak your clothes in detergent, wash them and sun dry them. Keep yourself hydrated, eat well and sleep well. Prepare yourself physically, emotionally and spiritually. Stay in touch with your family members and friends. After you finish your 7 days duty, you will be quarantined for 14 days, which will be outside the hospital campus. And on the 12th day of quarantine, you will be taken the throat samples and the nasal samples for testing. Now, it's a big challenge to have community participation. To have community participation, the first thing is we should make the community aware of the content. So we have got different media to educate or to make the community aware. And the best out of all what we have been doing, we have seen the police singing songs on the streets to ask the community to stay inside the houses. So maintain strict lockdown. Strict social distancing should be maintained. Standard precautions should be taken at all times. Hand hygiene and personal hygiene is very important. Wearing of mask is crucial. Quarantine and isolation care should be done properly. PPE by community healthcare workers, because they are the frontline warriors. Anybody who's working in the community should be wearing and the appropriate PPEs. And for community level, the sanitization of roads, markets and transports are done. Talking about infection control practices, we will take up three important things. The first is social distancing, which came up as lockdown. The second is hand hygiene, and the third one is respiratory hygiene. Talking about the lockdown and the social distancing, which came up by our Honorable Prime Minister, saying koi road par na nikle. This was the first thing before the lockdown was done. We say that you cannot go out of the house, but till date it is not documented that the pets are infected, so time can be spent there. 2 gaj ki duri is the target of the social distancing, and a village in Kerala has taken up a very good initiative of using umbrellas as social distancing. For hand hygiene, it is said any surface which is frequently touched should be frequently disinfected. No handshake from now. Hand hygiene, we have learned so much about these steps and the time. And the important thing which I would like to mention here is that we wash our hands, but how frequently do we wash the taps and disinfect the taps? So it is very important to, every time when we wash our hands, we need to wash the taps also, and the wash basins should be cleaned at least twice a day. This Salam Namaste had been coming up as a very good campaign, and we know this is a droplet infection. Cough hygiene is very important, and the use of mask is very important. So shopping, when you buy groceries, although we are not able to do much of shopping these days, remove the outer packing immediately and wash packing with soap and water and leave it in open for at least 24 hours before use. For food related practices, fruits and vegetables can be washed thoroughly with water. They have to be washed thoroughly with water. They can be washed with salt, vinegar, baking soda, or a weak solution of potassium permanganate can be used, and prefer home cooked food. Quarantine and isolation. Now it has come up that most of the patients with mild symptoms will be isolated at home only, because we do not load up the hospitals. Quarantine is for the suspected patients, and isolation is for the positive patients with minimum infection. And it is very important to do all this care without discrimination. So preferably there should be a separate room with attached washroom, well ventilated, lighted, only one person to take care of the patient and caregivers to wear masks at all time when they are in contact, hand hygiene to be done, keeping distance for affected person at least 1 meter, minimize time to be spent with the patient, and separate fomites, they should be washed separately. Everything of the patient should be washed separately, and sun dried, the things which can be sun dried. Disinfect the surfaces with alcohol based disinfectant. Mopping with soap based detergent or Lysol can be done. Assess, record, reports symptoms accordingly every day. If the symptoms worsen, you have to be hospitalized. When 2 samples turn negative, isolation can be stopped, but standard precautions will remain. Nothing done by the healthcare workers or community went without appreciations. We have 3 lockdowns and we have 3 appreciations, thanks to our government and our Prime Minister. We started with a question, who is at risk? And the answer was everyone is at risk. And I will end up asking, who is responsible for the containment of COVID-19? Again, the answer will remain everyone. Everyone who breaches the practices of infection control will be bringing up more patients. So the conclusion says, your safety first, stay safe, do not panic, take the opportunity of helping the sick, keep smiling. This is the year of nurse and midwife as given by WHO. We have already entered May, and we will be celebrating the birth anniversary of Florence Nightingale. And God bless. Thank you very much.
Everyone is responsible for the containment of COVID-19, and with this I want to thank Ms. Neena Singh for a wonderful presentation on infection control practices for COVID-19. And before we connect you with the next speaker of the day, Dr. Monica Datta from the National Institute of Nursing Education, who will be talking about hand washing and PPEs, I would give you an opportunity to post your questions in the live chat which is going on at your YouTube interface. So you can very well post your questions, and we will be back in a very short while. So welcome back, and straight away to Dr. Monica Datta.
Good afternoon to all, and today I will be discussing hand washing and personal protective equipment in context to COVID-19. So, under infection prevention and control strategies, WHO has given 5 recommendations to prevent or limit transmission of COVID-19, and my focus will be on first recommendation, that is applying standard precautions for all patients. The other recommendations are related to triage, implementation of additional precautions, administrative controls, and environmental as well as engineering controls. So when we say standard precautions, it means the minimum preventive measures that we apply to all the patients at all time, regardless of their case of suspicion or the status is confirmed case of COVID-19. And when it comes to use of PPE, risk assessment is very important for rationalizing the use of PPE. There are 8 elements of standard precautions, and I will be discussing hand hygiene and PPE according to the risk. So hand washing, why we are talking about hand washing? As we know, for COVID-19 till date there is no vaccine, there is no specific treatment, and what we are doing is supportive treatment which is modified as per the condition of the patient. So what is to be done? So this pandemic COVID-19 has forced the humanity to think of various ways of reducing the risk of infection, and what has been recommended is frequent hand washing. From this diagram of transmission of COVID-19, we can see that this is a droplet infection, and if the size of droplet is less than 5 micron, then it can be airborne. If the size of droplet is more than 5 micron, the droplets can directly inoculate on the mucous membrane or can spread either through direct or indirect contact. So from this we can say that hands are the connecting piece in the route of transmission. So now what we have to see is what is not under our control. While working with the patients, we cannot avoid touching the surfaces, and at the same time we cannot control others who will be working in that area. So we have to see what can be controlled by us. So we can take care of our hands by doing hand washing frequently. So it can be said the most powerful weapon against COVID-19 is hand washing with soap and water. And there are 2 basic components, that is physical removal. Friction plays an important role here for dislodging the microbial flora from the hand surfaces, and at the same time the soap will be breaking the lipid core of the virus and thus making it inactive. When it comes to healthcare workers and hand hygiene, there are certain basic concepts, that is we need hand washing facility, the proper training of the healthcare workers related to the hand washing technique, and all healthcare workers, they are required to be aware of 5 moments of hand hygiene. And in particular to COVID-19, before putting on PPE and after removing, when changing gloves, hand washing is recommended. After any contact with suspected or confirmed COVID-19 case, their waste or their immediate surrounding, we need to wash our hands before food preparation and after using the toilet. So now hand washing facility. What all we need there? We need clean water supply, soap and clean towel. When it comes to hand hygiene, we need alcohol-based hand rub with at least 60 to 80% of alcohol. 5 moments of hand hygiene. As healthcare workers, we need to be aware of these. And the first is before touching a patient, before clean or aseptic procedure. The third is after body fluid exposure risk, after touching the patient or after coming in contact with patient's surroundings. Now coming to hand washing, when your hands are visibly soiled, you have to go for hand washing with soap and water, and there are certain prerequisites for hand washing. The nails should be short and there should be no accessories on the hands. The time recommended is 40 to 60 seconds, and step 2 to step 7, these are very important in terms of time as well as friction. Step 2, palm to palm rubbing. Step 3, right palm over the left dorsum with fingers interlaced. Palm to palm rubbing with fingers interlaced. Cleaning the back of the fingers on the opposing palm and vice versa. Rotational rubbing of the thumb with the clasped fingers of the opposite hand and vice versa. Then rotational backward and forward rubbing of the fingertips on the opposing palm and vice versa. If the hands are not visibly soiled, we can go for hand hygiene using alcohol-based hand rub. And again here the time is 20 to 30 seconds, which is important. And the steps 2 to 7 are very important for making the hand washing effective. As healthcare professional, we have additional responsibility educating our patients as well as public about hand washing, and PGI is using this acronym Suman K S. We are using for Seedha, that is palm to palm rubbing with fingers interlaced. U Ulta, that is cleaning the dorsum. M Muthi, that is cleaning the back of the fingers. A Angutha, rotational rubbing of the thumb. N is Nakhun, that is cleaning the fingertips. And K is Klai, that is rotational rubbing of the wrist. The WHO has given two formulations for hand rub, and in formulation 1 it is ethanol 80%, in formulation 2 it is isopropyl alcohol 75%, which is recommended. Rest two components, that is glycerol and hydrogen peroxide, these are same for both the formulations. If you cannot go for hand washing, look for the hand sanitizer, and because the lipid membrane viruses like coronaviruses are killed by alcohol based hand sanitizers. Now coming to personal protective equipment against COVID-19, which is a very emotive as well as hot topic among front healthcare line workers. And PPE will create a barrier between a healthcare worker and the patient, thus preventing the exposure as well as limiting the transmission of infection. So before going for PPE, risk evaluation is must to rationalize the use of PPE, and for that we have to see type of interaction with the patient, whether we are coming in direct contact or indirect contact. We have to keep in mind the already discussed mode of transmission, and at the same time the amount of exposure has to be seen, whether we are involved in routine care activities or our involvement will be in aerosol generating procedures. For suspected or confirmed cases of COVID-19, there are recommended precautions, and the recommended precautions are standard precautions, which we have already discussed, contact precautions, and droplet precautions. Contact precautions, you will be wearing gloves and gown. Droplet precautions, you will be going for mask. And if a case is suspected or confirmed case of COVID-19 and there are chances of aerosol generation at the time of care, then along with standard precautions and contact precautions, you will be going for airborne precautions, and where the use of face shield as well as use of N95 will come. This table is explaining about the level of care and use of PPE. And when you look at triage, it is only the hand hygiene and use of medical mask which is recommended. But for sample collection, except medical mask, rest all things are recommended, that is hand hygiene, use of gown, N95 respirator, goggles and gloves. For suspected or confirmed cases of COVID-19 where no aerosol generation is there, N95 is not recommended, but in PGI, what we are practicing is whosoever is entering into the patient direct patient care area will be wearing N95. For suspected or confirmed cases of COVID-19 with aerosol generating procedures, everything is recommended except medical mask. And from this table, it is also very clear that hand hygiene is the most important component, because at all the levels hand hygiene is recommended. Now coming to donning of PPE. So there are certain principles which we need to keep in mind, that is correct donning of PPE is important for preventing the exposure risk as well as for facilitating the process of doffing. The healthcare workers, they are not supposed to adjust their PPE during patient care. They have to ensure their comfort before entering to the patient care area. Then PPE should not be removed when the person is in potentially contaminated areas, and frequent hand hygiene is recommended using alcohol-based hand rub. These are the articles for donning, and this has to be done after the risk evaluation. The articles are hand sanitizers, scrub suit, gloves, N95 mask, leg guards, striped gloves, head and neck hood, face shield, gown, jumpsuit, cap and goggles, shoe covers and mask. Now coming to the steps of donning PPE, when you will be entering the COVID-19 hospital, you will be in your own dress and wearing a surgical mask. You have to change your dress, wear a scrub suit. Then perform hand hygiene and then put on shoe covers. Again, you have to perform hand hygiene and you have to wear first pair of gloves. Discard the mask which you were wearing. Don't touch the mask from front. Hold the mask from strings to avoid contamination. Do hand hygiene and wear an N95 respirator, first lower then upper string. Then just adjust the nose piece of the N95 mask by pressing with your fingertips at the nose bridge. Fit test is very important, and for that you have to make a cup around the mask with both hands and then inhale sharply and exhale and check for any air leak. Next step is wear cap and then goggles. Then you have to examine your jumpsuit for appropriate size as well as for any wear and tear. Then put on your jumpsuit in the following step. Next is for extra protection, you will be going for leg guards over the jumpsuit. Then head and neck hood is recommended for people who are involved in aerosol generating procedures. So you have to wear head and neck hood over the jumpsuit. Next is your gown and tie the gown on the side to prevent contamination as well as for easy doffing. Next is your face shield. Again, it is recommended for aerosol generating procedures. Perform hand hygiene, put on your second pair of gloves, and now you are ready to move to patient care area. For providing care to COVID patients, wear third pair of gloves and remove after use. Now coming to the doffing of PPE, and when we talk about doffing of PPE, the concept of dirty area and clean area is very important, and the person will be entering in the clean area only with N95 mask and scrub suit, which is recommended, and rest all things to be removed in dirty area. There are certain principles, and hand hygiene is mandatory after each step while doffing. It has to be done slowly and deliberately to prevent aerosol generation at the time of doffing. The sequence and technique is very important, and in PGI we have control room from where we are giving instructions and facilitating the process of doffing by giving instruction to the people who are in the process of doffing. Now coming to the steps, stand in front of the mirror and then inspect yourself for any wear and tear or any spoilage, and if there is any contamination then it can be cleaned with 70% alcohol hand sanitizer swab, and after that you have to do hand hygiene and remove the first pair of gloves by glove in glove technique. Again perform hand hygiene and remove the next is your disposable gown removal, and it has to be done by inside out technique because outer side is considered as the most contaminated side. Remove the face shield by holding it from back. Just lean forward and discard it in red bin. Then remove the head and neck hood and discard in yellow bin. Then you have to sit on the dirty chair. You are in the dirty area. To remove your leg covers, don't touch the leg covers from outside. Just roll them out and remove and discard in yellow bin. Next is your jumpsuit removal. For that you have to remove the hood of the jumpsuit by holding it from back. Trace the zipper from bottom to up and avoid touching the naked neck area with your gloved hands. Unzip and remove jumpsuit, then perform hand hygiene. Then next is removing the goggles, again holding from back, leaning forward and discarding in red bin. Perform hand hygiene. After that, remove the surgical cap, in the similar fashion. Now you can sit on the clean chair, but still your feet will be in the dirty area, and you have to remove the shoe cover. After removing the shoe cover, you have to bring your feet in the clean area. Then perform hand hygiene. Remove the inner gloves. Again perform hand hygiene up to elbow level. It has to be thorough hand hygiene. Then be a new pair of gloves. Then it is the removal of N95 respirator, and you have to hold the lower string first and then the upper string. Don't touch from the front because that is most contaminated. Hold your breath and remove the N95 in yellow bucket and perform hand hygiene. Wear triple layer mask, leave the doffing area, have shower and change into personal clothes, discard surgical scrub in red bin. Concluding, we know that PPE is most important and it reduces the disease transmission rate as well as it gives protection to the staff, but at the same time, appropriate use of PPE is important. Safety first, so keep your hands clean and be safe. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Dr. Monica. And with this, I'm giving you one more chance of posting us your questions on the live chat. And now we will be connecting you to Miss Lakshmi from the National Institute of Nursing Education, PGI, who will be talking about handling biomedical waste. So straight away to Miss Lakshmi.
Vanakkam, Namaste. The coronavirus is invisible, but the waste is generated due to COVID-19 infection is huge, which make the man to handle difficult. So let us see how we can handle the biomedical waste. So my talk is the is it to be the following outflow, like biomedical waste management at different levels, like healthcare sector, quarantine settings, community level, at treating point, and responsibility of local bodies. So the question comes to the mind, like where the waste of quarantine centers and COVID-19 isolation wards go. So dealing with increasing volume of COVID-19 related waste is another risk faced by the frontline healthcare workers treating the infected patients. So we need to ensure the healthcare workers and the overall environment remain safe. So let's see what is biomedical waste. It's the waste which is generated in any waste that generated during the diagnosis, treatment, or immunization of human beings, animals, or research activities, etc. It could include human tissues, items contaminated with the blood, body fluids like dressings, plaster casts, cotton swabs, beddings contaminated with blood or body fluid, blood bags, and needles, syringes, or any other contaminated sharp object, which is according to the Biomedical Waste Rule 2016. So how we are going to manage the waste which is produced due to COVID-19 infection management? So India's pollution watchdog, the Central Pollution Central Board, has released guidelines on the March 19th and which is revised on March 25th and again on April 18th for handling, treatment and safe disposal of biomedical waste generated during treatment, diagnosis and quarantine of patients confirmed or suspected to have the COVID-19 to dispose of in a scientific manner, which is very important. So based on the current knowledge of COVID-19 and the existing practices in the management of infectious waste generated in the hospitals while treating viral and other contagious diseases. So let's see about the waste management which is generated in different areas and how we are going to handle. The first one is the biomedical waste management at the healthcare sector, which is in the huge amount. So we have the healthcare sectors in division of two, like isolation wards and sample collection centers and laboratories for the COVID-19 suspected patients. So actually the recommendations are like different color code bins having the different color code materials which has to be collected and disposed of in different way. But when it comes to the COVID-19, so we have the recommendations as per the central pollution boards. So we are going to follow the same guidelines in the PGA also. So we are doing this thing as per coming slides. Like there must be the separate color coded bins, bags, containers, trolleys or temporary storage area for the waste of COVID-19 patients. These all should be like bags should be double layered, which is to be used for collection so as to ensure the adequate strength and no leakage. So collect in dedicated bins and store temporarily biomedical waste separately prior to handing over to the same to the common biomedical waste treating facility, or it can be lifted directly from the ward into the CBWTF collection van itself. So all bags, containers or trolleys designated area used for collecting temporarily storing biomedical waste should be labeled as COVID-19 waste to enable the CBWTFs to identify the waste easily for priority treatment and disposal immediately upon the receipt. So general waste not having contamination should be disposed of as solid waste as per the solid waste management rules 2016. So separate records of the waste related to COVID-19 patients should be maintained, and the inner and outer surface of the containers, bins and trolleys used for the storage of COVID-19 biomedical waste should be disinfected with 1% of sodium hypochlorite solution daily. Opening or operating of the COVID-19 wards, ICUs, or designated area or sample collection areas, sample testing laboratories should be reported to the State Pollution Control Committee. We have reported to the Chandigarh Pollution Control Committee, and the dedicated sanitation workers should be deputed separately for the biomedical waste and the general waste to timely transfer waste to the temporary storage area. So since all waste related to COVID-19 patient is to be incinerated as final mode of disposal, so all such waste should be put it in yellow bags. Appropriate PPE should be worn while handling the biomedical waste of COVID-19 patients. So the waste which is generated in the isolation wards, which is generated by the healthcare providers and as well as which is used for the patient. So the healthcare providers here again they are going to have the waste generation in the huge amount, like their personal protective equipments which they use during the patient care. So as we discussed in PPE, so the steps they have told about and where it is. So only the two bins we have recommended, like yellow and red. So yellow bin always it is been to be directly sent for the incineration. So only in the red bin we can collect goggles and face shield which can be reused, which has to be contained the double layered in that 1% sodium hypochlorite solution, and it can be treated later on and then it can be reused, but as of now it is not practiced in the PGI. And the surgical scrubs which is worn by the healthcare provider while entering to the patient area, like which has to be again discarded in the red bin, and with having the bucket is having the 1% hypochlorite sodium, which has to be dipped for 20 minutes and then send it for the laundry. The spill management, worker assigned to clean the spill should wear the PPE, and most of the organic matter of the spill to be removed with absorbent materials, surface to be cleaned to remove residual organic matter, and we have to use the disinfectant that is hypochlorite, that is for small spills 1%, and if it is a spill is large 10% can be used. So managing the wastewater from the healthcare facilities. So appropriate treatment and disinfection of wastewater management has to be done, and the staff supposed to wear the PPE and practice the basic hygiene while on duty when they are managing the wastewater. But here the use of treated water in the utilities of healthcare facilities is to be avoided during this pandemic. So next comes the sample collection centers and laboratories for COVID-19 suspected patients. So the first and foremost step is the report the opening or operation of the COVID-19 sample collection centers to the State Pollution Control Board, and the guidelines which has to be followed as like of isolation wards, what the guidelines has been mentioned. So next is the biomedical waste management and quarantine settings. So what is quarantine settings? Is the quarantine camps or homes or the home care facilities are the places where suspected people or the contact of suspected or confirmed cases who have been directed by the authorized hospitals or local authorities to stay at home for at least 14 days for observation of any symptom of COVID-19. So in such area, the waste to be treated specifically. So generally here the main kind of waste is the general solid waste, which is the household waste, will be the more amount. So which has to be collected and handed over to the waste collector identified by the urban local bodies or as per the prevailing local method of disposing general solid waste. So here again the biomedical waste would be treated as domestic hazardous waste, like if the people like they will be using like gloves, mask, and if the quarantined person having any chronic morbidity, like if they are on the Euro bag and other things, dressings, which is all to be collected in the yellow colored bags and placed in dedicated dustbins for appropriate size and handed over to the authorized waste collectors, or they can be given to the directly CBWTF operators, which has been engaged deputed by the urban local bodies. Now it comes to the major part of the biomedical waste management in the community level. So the community level needs to dispose their used napkins, tissues, empty sanitizers, bottles in the separate bag to ensure the safety of municipal workers or the rag pickers. So which lies of the responsibility of every persons. So at the biomedical waste management, at the treating point, so what are the duties they have to observe? They have to report to the state pollution control boards or the pollution control committees about the receiving of waste from the COVID-19 isolation wards or the quarantine camps or any testing centers. So the operators of CBWTFs shall ensure regular sanitization of workers involved in handling and collection of biomedical waste. Workers shall be provided with the adequate PPEs, which includes 3-layer masks, splash-proof aprons and gowns, or the nitrile gloves and gum boots and safety goggles. Use dedicated vehicle to collect COVID-19 ward waste. It is not necessary to place a separate label on such vehicles. So those vehicles should be sanitized with sodium hypochlorite or any appropriate chemical disinfectant after every trip. So COVID-19 waste should be disposed of immediately upon receipt at the facility. In case it is required to treat and dispose more quantity, they can operate extra hours with the permission of local bodies. So operator of CBWTF shall maintain separate record for the collection, treatment and disposal of COVID-19 waste. So do not allow any workers which they show the symptoms of illness, and they may be protected with their leaves with the salary. So next comes the duties of state pollution control boards or the pollution control committees. So they shall maintain the records of COVID-19 treatment wards and quarantine centers and with the respective states. Ensure the proper collection and disposal of biomedical waste as per the biomedical waste rules 2016 as per the standard operative protocols. Allow CBWTFs to operate for extra hours as per their requirement. May not insist the authorization of quarantine camps as such facilities does not qualify for as the health facilities. However, they may allow the CBWTFs to collect the biomedical waste as and when required. So in case of states not having these CBWTFs as well as the rural or remote areas not having access to CBWTFs, the existing captive facilities of any hospital may be identified for disposal of COVID-19 waste and coordinate with the CBWTFs and urban local bodies in establishing adequate collection and disposal of COVID-19 waste. So what are the duties of urban local bodies? The urban local bodies are responsible for ensuring safe collection and disposal of biomedical waste, if any generated from the quarantine camps and the COVID-19 suspected persons. So they have to inform on the each quarantine camps and quarantine homes available with the local administration and provide updated list to the state pollution control boards from time to time. So they should ensure that the following steps, like providing the yellow colored bags to that homes and engage the authorized waste collectors for the doorsteps to collection of the biomedical waste, and they can transfer into the CBWTFs. And in case number of quarantine homes or the home care facilities are less, they may engage the services of CBWTFs to collect the waste directly from the doorsteps. So in such a case, they have to provide their details to them. So impart the training to waste collectors in handling of the biomedical waste, including methods of sanitization. The staff involved in handling and collection of waste from the quarantine homes or the home care centers shall be provided with the adequate PPEs. Use dedicated carts or trolleys, vehicles for the transport of biomedical waste and ensure the sanitization. And ensure that waste collectors arriving at quarantine centers or at home shall spray the disinfectant 1% hypochlorite solution on the bin used for the yellow bag, and establish common waste disposal center for receiving the collection of biomedical waste, or provide necessary support security including authorization to the staff of CBWTFs. Services of common biomedical waste treatment and disposal facilities and staff associated with the CBWTFs for collection, transportation, treatment and disposal of biomedical waste generated from the hospitals, including COVID-19 isolation wards, quarantine camps, etc., may be considered as essential service because they are part of the health infrastructure. So, take home message, the real win lies in successful source segregation and the scientific disposal. These are my references. Thank you so much.
Successful source segregation and scientific disposal. So with this, I want to thank Ms. Lakshmi for this presentation, and we would be taking a very short break, and we would connect you with the next speaker who would be talking about the handling of the dead patients. So we'll be back in a very short while, and meanwhile, you can post your relevant questions on the live chat. So we'll be back very soon. So welcome back, and I welcome Ms. Rupinder Kaur from the National Institute of Nursing Education, PGI Chandigarh, and she would be talking about handling of the dead patients.
Good afternoon to all. And this is the topic today discussion, handling of the dead patient. That is very, very important because everyone is scared regarding spreading of infection while handling of the dead patient, and the patient may die in the hospital setting, in the community, or in the other settings. But there is till date there is no evidence regarding spreading of infection while handling of dead patient if the standard precautions are used. Then the first priority of safety and well-being of the workers, which is very, very important. Therefore the guidelines by central government, and that is a government of health ministry and family welfare, is issued regarding the handling of dead patients. Then there is scenario of the COVID-19 cases. There is a total number of cases in the world, that is 36 lakhs 11,000 approximately, and in India 42,836, and in Chandigarh 102. Out of these, the total number of cases recovered 11 lakhs 70,000 approximately in world, and 11,761 in India and 21 in Chandigarh. And total number of deaths 2,50,123, and in India 1,389, and in Chandigarh only one death is there. Then objectives of drawing up set guidelines to enable the deceased family to obtain funeral services and to protect the involved personnel, for example workers and relatives. Then standard precautions to be followed by healthcare worker while handling dead bodies of COVID. Standard infection prevention control practices should be followed at all the times. These includes hand hygiene, use of PPE, safe handling of sharps, especially in 1% hypochlorite solution, disinfect bag housing dead body, instruments and devices used on the patient, disinfect linen, clean and disinfect environmental surface with 1% hypochlorite solution. Training in infection and prevention control practices. who all are staff identified to handle dead bodies in the healthcare setting and other settings. Then in the isolation area, mortuary, ambulance, and workers in the crematorium, burial ground, and should be trained in the infection prevention control practices. Removal of the body from the isolation room or area. The health worker attending to the dead body should perform hand hygiene, ensure proper use of PPE. All tubes, drains, and catheters on the dead body should be removed. Any puncture holes or wounds resulting from the removal of catheter, drains, tubes, or otherwise should be disinfected with 1% sodium hypochlorite and dressed with impermeable material. Apply caution while handling sharp devices and should be disposed into a sharp container with 1% hypochlorite solution. Plug all orifices of the dead body to prevent leakage of the body fluid. If the family of the patient wishes to view the body at the time of removal from the isolation room or area, they may be allowed to do so with the application of standard precautions. Place the dead body in leak-proof plastic body bag. The exterior of the body bag can be decontaminated with 1% sodium hypochlorite solution. The body bag can be wrapped with a mortuary sheet or sheet provided by the family members. The body will be either handed over to the relatives or taken to the mortuary. All used soiled linen should be handled with standard precautions, put in a biohazard bag, and the outer surface of the bag disinfected with hypochlorite solution. Use equipment should be autoclaved or decontaminated with disinfectant solution in accordance with established infection prevention control practices. All medical waste must be handled and disposed of in the accordance with the biomedical waste management rule. The health staff who handle the body will remove personal protective equipment and will perform hand hygiene. Provide counseling to the family members and respect their sentiments. Don't allow the body to be taken to the home. Then environmental cleaning and disinfection. All surfaces of the isolation area, floors, bed railing, side table, IV stand, etc. should be wiped with 1% hypochlorite solution. Allow a contact time of 30 minutes and then allow to air dry. Embalming of the dead body should not be allowed. Then autopsies on the COVID-19 dead body, it is usually to be avoided, but if autopsy is to be performed for special reason, the following infection prevention control practices should be adopted. The team should be well trained in infection prevention control practices. The number of forensic experts and support staff in the autopsy room should be limited. The team should full complement of PPE. Round-ended scissors should be used. PM40 or any other heavy-duty blade with blunted point to be used to reduce prick injuries. Only one body cavity at a time should be dissected. Unfixed organ must be held firm on the table and sliced with a sponge. Care should be taken to protect the hand. Negative pressure to be maintained in mortuary, at least 12 air changes per hour. An oscillator saw with suction extractor of the bone aerosol into removable chamber should be used for sawing skull. Otherwise, a hand saw with a chain mail glove may be used. Needle should not be resheeted after fluid sampling. Needle and syringes should be placed in a bucket. Reduce aerosol generation during autopsy using appropriate technique, especially while handling lung tissue. After the procedure, body should be disinfected with 1% sodium hypochlorite and placed in a body bag, the exterior of which will again be decontaminated with 1% hypochlorite solution. The body thereafter can be handed over to the relative. Autopsy table to be disinfected as per standard protocol. Then transportation. The body is cured in a body bag, exterior of which is decontaminated, poses no additional risk to the staff transporting the dead body. The personnel handling the body may follow standard precautions. The vehicle after the transfer of the body to cremation burial, it will be decontaminated with 1% sodium chloride. And in the Chandigarh administration recommended the Red Cross will be transported to the body to the cremation ground. At the crematorium or burial ground, the crematorium burial ground should be sensitized that COVID-19 does not pose additional risk. The staff will practice standard precautions of hand hygiene, use of mask and gloves and PPE, viewing of the dead body by unzipping the face end of the body bag by the staff using standard precautions may be allowed for the relatives to see the body for one last time. Then religious rituals such as reading from religious scripts, sprinkling holy water, and any other last rites that does not require touching of the body can be allowed. Bathing, kissing, hugging, etc. of the dead body should not be allowed. The funeral or burial staff and family members should perform hand hygiene and they should wear the PPE and doffing of the PPE, and after that they should hand hygiene and after the cremation or burial. The ash does not pose any risk and can be collected to perform the last rites. Large gathering at the crematorium burial ground staff should be avoided as a social distancing measure, as it is possible that close family contact may be symptomatic and or shedding the virus. And in conclusion, use PPE for all the health workers, crematorium, burial ground staff, drivers and relatives while handling dead body, and prior information to the cremation ground staff. Use 1% sodium hypochlorite solution for disinfectant. Then train all the health worker regarding handling of the dead body. Avoid large gathering at crematorium or burial ground and maintain distancing. Hand washing with soap and water after cremation or burial. The depth of each grave should be at least 8 feet and distance of 3 feet must be left between two graves. And dignity in death is a human right all over the world in the sense of culture and religious. Thank you.
So, dignity in death is a human right. With this, I want to thank Ms. Rupinder Kaur for this presentation on handling of the dead patient. And this is your last chance to post your questions to us through this live chat, and we will be back very soon with the panel discussion. So welcome back, and we are here with our panel of experts comprising Ms. Neena Singh, Dr. Monica Datta, Ms. Lakshmi, and Ms. Rupinder Kaur. So let us take your questions one by one, starting with Ms. Neena. You had very meticulously explained about infection control practices, but there is a common question on how to disinfect the surfaces which are commonly touched. Let's say the top of the table or the door handles, the knobs, and other things. So how do you recommend the disinfection of these surfaces, and what should be the frequency of disinfection?
Thank you very much for the question. I would really like to say that the door handles, if we talk disinfection in hospitals, we do it with 1% sodium hypochlorite. And if we talk about disinfecting them in the home care setting, you can use it with alcohol based hand rub, or you can use simple soap and water also.
Well, thank you. And how about the currency notes? Although digital payments are being promoted during this time as well, but again, currency note, it is very difficult to disinfect them. So, do you advise some special method for them, or just hand hygiene after using those notes?
It has been said also that you can sanitize them and then iron them, keeping a cloth or something over it, and then you can leave it in the sun also for some time, and prefer not to do it. Leave it, clean it, leave it for some time. You can iron it, and one of the answers came on the chats also that you can blow dry it with your dryer also, so that can also be used.
So, do we have some studies which show the effectiveness of these, or it is a common sense recommendation?
It is a common sense recommendation so far. We will do some study, I suppose.
Thank you, Ms. Neena. Next is a question for Dr. Monica about hand washing. So, as far as hand hygiene is concerned, there are two ways. One is alcohol-based hand rub, and other is hand washing with soap and water. So, is there some study which says any one of these methods is more effective than another one, or both are equally effective?
Thank you. As such, based on evidences, we can say that both either you go for soap and water or you go for alcohol-based hand rub, both are equally effective. But if the hands are visibly swelled, this is recommended by WHO that you have to go for soap and water hand washing. And if the hands are not visibly swelled, and in case of emergency, we can go for alcohol-based hand rub, at least with 70% of alcohol.
So is there is one more question which asks, is there some specific soap which is more effective, or it's like similar efficacy of all of them?
While going through the various studies, I have seen that most of the studies are saying that it is not recommended that we should go for antiseptic soaps. All kind of soaps are equally effective.
Thank you, Dr. Monica. Next, we have a question for Ms. Lakshmi. You had meticulously explained about handling biomedical waste. So, as you had told that all waste generated from a COVID positive patient goes for incineration. So, how about the plastic waste? Even that goes for incineration, or there are some alternate guidelines on that?
Of course, all waste is being considered as contagious and it has to be incinerated, which is generated for treating the COVID-19 patients. So even the shops which we have to collect in the white translucent bins, 2/3 of bins once it is filled, and it has to be put it in the yellow bag, again double-laid yellow bag, which has to be sent for the incineration definitely. So if the linens used for the patients, if you want to reuse it, then which can be put it in the red bin which containing the 1% of hypochlorite solution, soaked for 20 minutes, then it has to be sent for the laundry separately. So all the waste, of course, it should be treated as a contagious waste, hazardous waste, which has to be incinerated.
Okay, thank you so much. Next, we have a question for Ms. Rupinder, who has explained in detail about the protocol of handling of the dead patients. It is a little sensitive matter, although, but there are some ambiguities, and which I believe we should put to rest about the which is a better method of of cremation? Is it like burial or cremation, or is it like almost the same?
No, thank you. As studies shows, no studies evidence is not there. But usually they said cremation is the best method than the burial, but it is not recommended because there are so many religions are there. That's why the cremation is done in both the methods, cremating and burial.
So, do we have some instances where the virus has spread from dead to other people? I mean, to living individuals?
No, we have not evidenced study or any with the standard precautions of the use of PPE. We can handle the dead body and it will not spreading the infection to the patient, to the caregivers or whatever the relative or other handling the dead body.
Okay, thank you so much. And coming on to the last question of the day, it is about hand hygiene again. So there are two guidelines for hand hygiene. One is the WHO guidelines, one is the NHS guidelines. So is it like hand hygiene do not involve the hygiene of the wrist, or the wrist hygiene is an integral part of hand hygiene? Anybody, if you can take that question.
As per WHO recommendations, wrist cleaning is not involved, but in PGI and especially in COVID-19 setup, we are going for Suman K, that is the acronym, and they have included the wrist cleaning. And what can be said is doing an additional wrist will not be doing any harm. And otherwise, we can stick with the WHO guidelines.
Thank you. And before we end the talk of the day, there is one more question. Some ambiguity has been noticed among various healthcare workers on the frequency of changing of the gloves, especially in the wards and other areas. Probably some are using the same set of gloves for, let's say, drawing blood from various patients. So, what are the recommendations? Should we change gloves for every patient, or should we use the hand hygiene with a sanitizer before moving on to the next patient? What do you have to say on this?
If I would like to answer this question, we have already said that when we talk about hand hygiene, where and when you should perform, we always say that in between patient and all those patients. When we talk about COVID, between patients, we should always change our gloves. And even on the same patient, between activities, if the glove is very visibly soiled, the glove needs to be changed. And while performing activities on the patient, we should first do the cleaner work, and then we should come on to the other work. And one of the chats I had seen which said, is wearing third pair of glove very important? Yes, wearing third pair of glove is very important, because two pair of gloves on your hands become your hands as such. A bare hand it comes. So wearing third pair of glove on each and every activity is very important, which will give you protection. Because when you come to the doffing area, you already had the same two pair of gloves which we had donned during the donning, and for every activity in the unit, you're going to wear a third pair of gloves.
Well, thank you so much. And with this, we have come to an end of today's webinar on infection control practices for nursing officers. And with this, I would like to thank the esteemed panel of experts for the day, Ms. Neena Veer Singh, Dr. Monica Datta, Ms. Lakshmi, and Ms. Rupinder Kaur from the National Institute of Nursing Education, PGI, Chandigarh. And before we proceed further, I would like to thank each one of you for your active participation in this webinar and for posting your questions to us. You can keep writing us, and also I would like to flash on your TV screens the PGI coronavirus helpline number, which is 0172 2755 and you can very well contact the helpline experts for further queries. And with this, I would also like to welcome you for the next webinar, which would be webinar 8, and it would be on topic care of the patients with COVID-19 for nursing officers again. And I would like to thank each one of you again Jai Hind, Jai Bharat.